All right, so here's part D, E, and F of the same example. We're dealing with negative signs still, but now we've thrown negatives in the exponent as well. So let's see how this affects things. All right, in part D, we have to deal with negative 49 to the negative 1/2. The first thing you should notice is that this negative in front of the base is not in parentheses. So that negative sign is just going to tag along as multiplication by -1 and change the result to a negative number. However, this negative sign in the exponent means that I have to flip whatever it's connected to. So negative 1/2 is connected to the 49, so that gets flipped to 1 over 49 to the 1/2. Okay, so the rule about negative exponents says to get rid of a negative exponent, you flip the base and then change the exponent to a positive. Okay, so then I still have this -1 multiplication that's going to change my result to a negative, but now I have to use my fraction exponent definition and make this 1 over the 1/2 power is the same as the square root. So ultimately, I get -1 times 1 over root 49, which is 1 over 7, which means I just have -1/7 as my final result here. Now, part E looks slightly different than part D, but it's actually very different. Okay, so pay attention to these parentheses. Because the -49 is in parentheses, when you flip because of the negative exponent, you're going to put the entire number -49 in the denominator, but also you're going to take the entire number -49 to the 1/2 power. Okay, so what happens is you get rid of this negative exponent by flipping, but the result has a -49 still in parentheses to the 1/2 power. Okay. Now you change the 1/2 power to a root. This is 1 over the square root of -49. And at this point, the alarm bells should be going off in your head because the square root of -49 is not a real number. Okay, because the negative was in parentheses here and here, you end up with the negative underneath the square root, which means your final result here is going to be not a real number. So actually, the negative exponent didn't change the result because this negative underneath the square root breaks everything and gives us not a real number. So part F is very similar to part E, except instead of a 1/2 power, we have a 1/3 power, which is going to change the type of radical we end up with. But nonetheless, this negative downstairs here is still in parentheses. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of my negative exponent by flipping. All right, because this -64 is in parentheses, I'm going to put 1 over -64 to the positive 1/3 power. Right, flipping got rid of my negative. Now I'm going to rewrite the 1/3 power as a radical. So 1 over the cube root of -64. But the cube root of -64 we can deal with, since we know that -4 times -4 times -4 is -64. So this ends up being 1 over -4, right? The cube root of -64 is -4. And we usually write the negative sign out in front, so this would be -1/4 as our final result.